Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
Hey, this is Tanner the Bulldozer Bozer.
Hi, this is Brian Burke from Toronto, Ontario.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Agro from Sportsnet Central.
This is Jay Onright.
This is Quick Dick coming to you from Tofnell, Saskatchewan.
Hey, everybody. My name is Theo Fleury.
This is Kelly Rudy.
This is Corey Krause.
This is Wade Redden.
This is Jordan Tutu.
My name is Jim Pattison.
Hey, it's Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada and Rogers Hometown Hockey, and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. We got another great one on tap for you today. But before we get there, just Merry Christmas. I know I'm a couple days late, or Happy Holidays. I hope everybody's doing well out there. The podcast rolling along here. We've, if you missed last week's Don Cherry on, that was one knocked off the bucket list, so to speak. I got a list, and some of the names I think are just absolutely unattainable. But I've been proven wrong against that thought multiple times. And if you just continue to persevere, put positive thoughts out there, geez, it's pretty crazy what can happen in a year's time. From the beginning of 2020, where you had Mr. Paul Bissonnette walk on episode 2 of 2020 to one of the last episodes having Don Cherry on. It's been a very eventful 2020. I know there's been a lot of bad, tough times for a lot of people, but the podcast is happy to have you all aboard. And today is I tell you what, Mr. Healy might be one of the best guests I've had yet. He is colorful and tells a hell of a story. But before we get there, let's toss to today's episode sponsors, Carly Clausen and the team over at Windsor Plywood, builders of the podcast studio table. For everything wood, these are the guys, whether we're talking about mantles, decks, windows, doors, or sheds. When you want quality, stop in and see the group at Windsor Plywood. Heck, I always say hop on your phone and take a look at their Instagram page or their Facebook page, for that matter, social media, and you can see what they're cooking with, because they got some cool chunks of wood and just ideas for your house and ways to spruce things up. Give them a call today, 780-875-9663. Jen Gilbert and team want you to know for over 40 years, since 1976, the dedicated realtors of Coldwell Cityside Realty have served Lloydminster and the surrounding area. They are passionate about our community, and they pride themselves on giving back through volunteer opportunities and partnerships as often as they can. They know home is truly where awesomeness happens. Coldwell Banker, Cityside Realty, for everything real estate, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 780-875-3343. Clinton team over at Trophy Gallery, championship belts, custom medals, die-cast signage, name tags, engraving on Yetis and Brewmates, business awards in crystal and glass. They ship Canada-wide. Go to trophygallery.ca. They got over 5,000 products, and if you use promo code Newman, you'll get 15% off. Any sport, anytime, from bodybuilding to hockey. Give Clinton team a look today at trophygallery.ca. HSI Group, they're the local oil field burners and combustion experts that can help make sure you have a compliant system working for you. The team also offers security, surveillance, and automation products for residential, commercial, livestock, and agricultural applications. They use technology to give you peace of mind so you can focus on the things that truly matter. Stop in and see Brody or Kim today at 3902 52nd Street, or give them a call, 306-825-6310. Clay Smiley and Prophet River. Prophet River is a retailer of firearms, optics, and accessories serving all of Canada. They specialize in importing firearms from the United States, hard-to-find calibers, rare firearms, special editions. Check them out at profitriver.com. When we do the Crude Master Final Five, I was out visiting Heath and Tracy, and we got talking guns, and they spoke extremely high of Mr. Clay Smiley and Prophet River. So shout out to not only one sponsor at the end of the podcast, and Crude Master, they've been there since the beginning, but Clay Smiley and the team over at Prophet River, making people happy from all parts of the country. And you're going to find that out pretty quick. We got a cool guy that buys guns through Clay is coming on the podcast here in a couple weeks. And I tell you what, that kind of came out of nowhere. And so, once again, I'm giving Prophet River a lot of props here for not only specializing in firearms and importing all these things, they also are good to the community, including the podcast. So shout out to Clay Smiley and the team over at Prophet River. Gartner Management, they house the podcast here. If you're looking for types of rental properties, whether it's small or a small office or a 6,000 square foot commercial space, give Wade Gartner a call, 780-808-5025. Finally, if you've been driving and you see the beautiful SNP billboard that Read and Write have designed for me, or heck, you see the pictures with the quote on the wall or my SNP logo in the background, that's, I got to give a mad props to Deanna Wandler and a Merry Christmas to all the team over at Read and Write. They always make me look good. And if you want some outside signage to help make your company look good, give Deanna Wandler and Read and Write a call today. If you're heading into any of these businesses, make sure you let them know that you heard about them from the podcast. And if you're interested in advertising on the show, visit SeanNewmanPodcast.com. Top right corner, hit the contact button and send me your info. We got lots of different options, and we want to find something that can work for the both of us. So if you're interested in getting involved with the show, make sure you reach out. 2021 is only a few days away, and then we're off and rolling again. Would love to have you aboard. But now let's get to the T-Bar 1 Tale of the Tape. Originally from Pickering, Ontario, he spent 4 years at Western Michigan University. He was signed by the LA Kings in 1985, and from this point on, he spent 15 years in the NHL. He suited up for the Kings, Islanders, Rangers, and Maple Leafs, playing in 437 games, and was a part of the 1994 New York Rangers Stanley Cup Championship team. He is the current president of the NHL Alumni Association. I'm talking about Mr. Glenn Healy. So buckle up. Here we go.
This is Glenn Healy, and welcome to the Sean. What's your name again? This is Glenn. Take two. This is the Glenn Healy show. No, take three. This is Glenn Healy, and welcome to the Sean Newman Show. Enjoy.
Well, welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast. Today I'm joined by Mr. Glenn Healy. So first off, thank you for hopping on, and thank you for not getting frustrated by the 50 million text I ended up firing you.
No, you're a good sort. Whenever anyone starts with, I'm friends with Corey Cross, the gate is open. So no problem. Happy to help. And I've heard great things about what you're doing. And so, let's make some magic happen.
Well, I want to start there.
You asked me on, so there'll be no magic. Let's put this in the ditch then for the next little bit.
I call bullshit on that because if you're a hockey guy, chances are you've listened to Spit and Chicklets, and you've been on Spit. I think you were one of the better episodes. That might be a little biased because you got you on now, but when I first heard it, I'm like, holy crap, Glenn can really spit. Yeah, there we go.
Better put that back in the gift basket for Christmas. Probably wouldn't be wise if that was missing. That was a fun show. It was right after Jeremy Rodick got fired. So my biggest concern was at 8 o'clock in the morning with these two guys who are fun guys and love to tell stories. There's two things that happen. One, they're offering you alcohol, which is not a good thing at 8 in the morning. So I brought one of the gentlemen, Scotty McKay, who works with me, just to say, all right, if I say something that I could get fired about, please let me know right away. And then the second thing, I love the fact they tell stories, but you just get this enchanted way of feeling like you're in the locker room and you just can let out anything you want. Doesn't matter. We're in the locker room. This all stays within these walls, or to the other 2 million people that watch their show. So that's the intoxicating thing with that show. They're great. They tell great stories, which we all have. And the lure is don't have a fish on the hook. Because if you get on, it's hard to get off. So at 8 in the morning, yes. Would you like a Pink Whitney? Fortunately for me, I can't stand vodka. No, I'm not having a Pink Whitney at 8 in the morning. But they're great for our sport, great for our guys, great for the game. I love everything about that show, and love the fact that you're doing yours. Because again, everyone's got a story. Just please tell the stories. I don't care about matchup shifts and good stick in the lane and what's the coach going to do next? Coach doesn't play. I couldn't care less what the coach is going to do. It's all about the players and their stories, and let's tell them.
Well, I always say, if you want, who's in the lane and who's dumping this and what line matchups, you go to TSN, you go to Sports Center, you go where those guys are. You don't come here. What you come here for is you go, somebody is going to wake up when this airs and go, Glenn Healy. Because this happens on every single guy. They're going to go, do I want to listen to Glenn Healy for an hour and a half talk about his playing days? Well, I'll give it a go. And then what'll end up happening is at the end, they'll go, wow, Glenn, you'll do exactly what I did when I listened to you on Spit. I went, damn, that was pretty freaking good. Because you get to see the guy, you get to hear the stories, and you get to hear him kind of open up and not be so, cookie cutter. That's what all hockey players are when you get after a hockey game. I understand it, but it's cool to kind of glimpse into parts of the stories and the life and everything else. So
I love when they interview players at the end of the second. It's 2-2, and they ask you if the next goal is important. What a stupid fucking question! Like, really? Like, we're going into overtime. Is the next goal important? No, not really. Quicker we get on that bus and get the jet started, the better we are. We get back home quicker. Dumb questions. And unfortunately, that's what we have sometimes when we turn the TV on. The great thing about that is we get a remote in our hand and we can turn the channel if we really want. But yes, I couldn't agree more and applaud you in what you're doing. But I survived spitting chiclets. I didn't get fired. There was no fine from the league. I think I'm doing pretty good. Like, I'm batting 1,000 right now.
yeah, well, we'll see if we could suck some stories out of you then, Glenn.
I'm in trouble.
I gotta start with Corey because Mr. Cross has been on the show several times. I could say it very clearly that he impressed the hell out of me because growing up, as you can see, Wade was the guy from the hometown. Corey went and played in Tampa. Had a very unusual way of getting there, and so to hear his story and how like candid he was about it really impressed me.
Mm-hmm.
And he started laughing when I said I wanted to get you on. He's like, "Oh boy." So you got to have a Corey Cross story for me.
Well, so we would sit on the flights. He sat beside Curtis Joseph, and so we would kind of sit there on these flights home, and Crosser had this war book, 900 pages, like this thick, right? And I'd look at him and I'd think, okay, like, you're really going to read that? Like, you're trying to pretend you're an intellect, right? And he would open up the book. And at the same time, Curtis is talking about horse semen because he was doing racehorses. You take the semen from this horse, you put it in that horse. And then all of a sudden, you get a horse that looks like this, right? It really runs the race really fast. So you've got Cujo talking about that. Then you've got me with my practice bagpipe chanter playing a bunch of bagpipe songs, and it's all in your ears, so I'm not disturbing the entire plane because it clearly would have. And then Crosser with his war book, and he'd open it up and I'd be like, Crosser, you really think you're going to read that? Like, really? Yeah, just lay off, watch this. 30 seconds later, fast asleep. So I think in the 4 years that I was with Toronto with him, he read 8 pages. So I don't know if he's finished the book. I mean, maybe that's another reason for a podcast for him. But I can tell you, he had no chance of reading it. It was the most boring book ever. I mean, clearly overweight with his luggage if we actually had to check in. But we had the seaman talk, the bagpipe talk, and Corey Cross, who fell asleep reading a World War II book that was bigger than anything he's ever read.
Reading an encyclopedia.
Yeah. So there was our flights home every day and from games, and just wow, can't make this shit up.
Are you actually 5'7"? I've been wondering this for a bit now. I'm a short guy. To frame the question, I'm 5'6". I'm a defenseman. I'm a small guy. I started, doing my light research I do, and I come across 5'7". I'm like, gee, I always just assumed all my life that all NHLers were a standard height, so to speak. Not that sounds stupid, but because all I ever told myself growing up was, man, if you were 4 inches taller, you would have been in the show, right? Something stupid like that. And the more guys I interview, I can't get over how many small guys played in the show.
So what you're trying to say, size matters?
I'm trying to say you played a goalie position as
So,
a small
you gotta
guy.
remember, so, and it's ironic you say that. So I can remember last year when we at the team of the century, which is the Oilers. I think it was two years ago now. COVID has seemed to taken a bunch of our time away. We don't know when we started and when it's going to end. But
We're in the twilight zone,
okay.
Glenn.
So it was Mike Vernon, myself, Grant Fuhrer, kind of standing around just chatting. And I looked, and the first thing I thought of was, look at all of us. We're like 5'8", all of us. Like no one's tall, no one's big, no one's 6'7", 6'9". There's no Vasilevsky. There's no Peke Rene, and it just was an eye opener to me. I think there was an evolution of equipment that really led to the change in what you could have for a size of a goalie. So if I take you back to, say, my first couple of years, 85, 84, going up to the late 80s, I had a set of goalie pads made by John Brown. He was a great goalie manufacturer, big in the business, and he had the deer hair leather pads. And I weighed them after about not wearing them for about 3,500 days. They were 27 pounds. So if you think about that, a goalie pad or pads today would be about 8 pounds combined. So you go from east to west. I'm going with 8 pounds worth of weight to get to cross ice passes, or I've got 27 pounds as a goalie who's 5'8". So can you imagine if I'm 6'8"? What do they weigh? Are they 40 pounds, 37 pounds? So I think that evolution of equipment made it so that goalies could get east to west, could get across to make those cross seam passes, saves, and not be subject to the fact that you're just not going to get there. And then you combine that with the fact that if you're a bigger goalie, there's less margin for error, right? I cover the net. I really don't have to make a save. You're probably just going to hit me, because that's the biggest thing in goaltending. It's not what's in front of you, although I did worry about that with Gretzky and Lemieux and a whole bunch of others, but it's what's behind you. I know how much net is behind me for any particular player to score. And if I've got bigger pads, then you know what? I have a better chance of making that save. The opportunity is in my favor. I recall one practice, Curtis Joseph, he wanted to try my pads one day in practice. He goes, let me try them. Okay, sure, Cooch. Puts them on. And they look like those Pee-wee mini pads. Remember, I used to wear those back in the day? For anyone that's too old, then whatever, turn the channel. But Pee-wee mini pads, that was the big thing, right? You had to have those. He put them on. The first shot hit him straight in the shin, and all I could hear him yelping at the other end of the ice. Pads were gone. Take them off. Too small. How can you wear these? But that's the way we sustained. That's the way we managed to play. But started with the big, heavy ones, and they weren't even wet when I weighed them after 3,500 days. So when they get wet, they're heavier. And then you went into better equipment, bigger goalies, and then you're playing the odds, and the odds are in the favor of a bigger goalie. And I would think some teams today, they don't even draft guys unless you're 6'2", if you're a goalie. Even though you've got more talent, and Grant Fuhrer is one of the arguably the best, and Mike Vernon, and you go down the list. They just don't even look at it. It's a stat. No, too small. Next, bigger guy.
So you're saying then, as a small guy today, even if you were unbelievable, you'd have to be unbelievable to be on a scout's radar. Like you'd have to do something special to be a small guy like yourself and make it to the show.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So anyone who can't get on a ride in Disney, don't be a goalie. You're out. Again, you're drafting guys at 18. I mean, you're on a hope and a prayer, right? To see if this kid's going to make it in 4 years or 5 years or whenever he develops. And I think from a goaltending standpoint, that position more than any, there's this level of development. I tried out for the World Junior team in 84. No, it was 1981, the year that Canada beat the Russians 8-0. There were 4 goalies: Frank Caprice, Mike Moffat, Glenn Healy trying out, and Grant Fuhrer. And I remember coming down one of the first days, we were going to do a team stretch, and Grant Fuhrer's down, and he's wearing black dress socks and running shoes. And I thought, man, this guy better be damn good, because you're going to dress like this to go train. You better have some swagger. Okay, I watched him the first day in practice and went, oh, wow, okay, he's making the Oilers. So he did. He made the Oilers and had a splendid career, a Hall of Fame career, arguably one of the best goalies ever. I got cut, and Mike Moffat and Frank Caprice made the team. And I went back to my little hole in the wall in Pickering by a nuclear reactor. And those guys, hey, they won the gold medal game. They won 8-0. Like, you could have played net with Wade Redden's sweater on behind you and won the game. Like, what are you going to, all I got to do is make sure I don't give up 9. Okay, we'll get the gold. Start the jet. But, you know, Grant was unique. He was one of the few guys that right from the start, gosh, was he magic, and stepped into the NHL. But a lot of us, we need time. And so when you do that little dance at the podium, you really have to be sure you've got the right guy. And if you're looking at statistics and analytics, and you've talked to your analytics, then you probably are going to take the bigger goaltender.
You know, I got to ask about Grant Fuhr specifically. He's been on the show before. Well, I've had a bunch of, now I've started to, you know, with him and Rudy and now yourself. What's fun about the different guys is their different personalities. And what I want to know, I think what every listener wants to know that listened to the Grant Fuhr episode was Grant was very, says like 2 words, and then it's back on you, and you ask, and back on you, and back, and then you get you and Rudy on, and you guys are just willing to talk and just share. What I want to know is,
have you had Pierre Maguire on?
Haven't had Pierre.
Yeah,
you take the cake.
You don't even have to ask a question. Just push play. Here we go.
I've had Chris Dingman on from the Tampa Bay Lightning once upon a time when they won a cup. And that's what everybody joked about with that. Sorry, Chris, if you're listening. But is Grant behind closed doors a chatty Cathy, or is that him? Has that always been him?
No, I think you're right. He's an incredible soul. He's got a big heart. I think he gives way more than he takes, which you know, is pretty admirable in the days of always wanting more and all of us take. He's not that way at all. And for what he's accomplished and all the cups that he's won and the Hall of Fame induction, and you know, you would never know that this is one of the greatest of all time ever. One of the top 100 players of all time. Very, very, you know, quiet, you know, but there's a lot going on in there, right? There's a lot that he feels, and you know, he just isn't about to tell everyone how great he is. So we'll do that on your show and say, man, is that guy good? He would never say it. And you know, he's got a beautiful family, and like everything I've seen about what he does, it's always about, you know, there's always that thought, right? When you do things for others, that's when you'll be remembered. I think that's the way he puts the left foot in front of the right foot every day. He's always about doing something for somebody else. So I'd love to have him as part of our goaltender mafia, because it to me, it makes me proud that, you know, didn't get to be a teammate of his, but boy, plays the same position. He's an alumni. He's one of us. And he really makes us proud.
Well,
and great guy.
I should say super nice guy, like ridiculously nice guy. He just you'd think, talking about like the Oilers and, well, heck, like his entire career for that matter, he's done some incredible things. We just said that. And just to try and pull some of those out, it was interesting because he was just quiet. I think quiet's the best word to describe. Going back to you, Glenn. Did you start by playing junior B? Pickering junior B?
Yeah. So I mean, hey, my first year playing hockey, you know, my parents came over from Scotland after World War II. They had no job, no money in Scotland. You come to Canada, you get £2 to emigrate with no job. But hey, it's £2. It's a boat ride, so it could be pretty cool. Then they came here, and here the Scottish family decides we should put Glenn into hockey, because all of the people in the church league had their kids in hockey. So I start playing. I'm a defenseman. And it was the days and time of the buzzer system. So you'd go out, you would have
I remember those days. Those were great days.
So I would step on the ice, and you know, I would make my way to the puck, and then I'm off. Okay. Back to the bench, and I'm back on. I haven't even got to the bench, and I'm back on. So I played more than anybody in any league at any time. I don't think I ever got to the bench. I spent the entire year, and and never touched the puck once. And my dad, who was just he stand down Scotty Bowman. He was an incredible coach. He said, well, if he can't get to the puck, why don't you let the puck get to him? Put him in net. And I became a goalie. There we go. I can stand there and wait for it to come to me. And so, for us, it was all about life skills. It was about discipline. It was about sacrifice. It was about being a great teammate. All those things that we try to teach our kids, but sport can teach them. And then, had my chance at playing at a higher level. And the focus for our family was, could you be the first Healy that's ever been educated? Could you go to university? Oh my gosh, this would be monumental. We've combed the all of Scotland and Ireland, and you're the only one. And so that was my focus. So play junior B and get a scholarship. And that's exactly how the dance happened for me. So what started off as never touching the puck, getting a set of pads that fell off the truck at the Legion. So you know where they came from. And
wait. Your first set of pads fell off the truck, shall we say?
Yeah. That's the way it works at the Legion, right? If you go to any Legion anywhere, they'll sell you a block of cheese the size of this table. And you're like, where did you get that? Don't worry about it. It's $3. Just give us the money. You know what I mean? Okay. So I had a set of pads. I don't know where they came from. And I wore them for, when I was 6, they were a little bit too big for me. I mean, considering they were in front of my eyes, so I couldn't even see the puck. But as I got older, I grew into them and wore those for forever. But for me, the journey was life skills, and making sure that you enjoyed playing the game. The game was about being fun, not about making it to the next level. And junior B was the launch pad for me to get to go to university, to get an education, and to set myself up for what would have been the rest of your life, which was, hey, the NHL landed in my lap. Wasn't drafted at any level, at any league, at any time. So a guy from Pickering, Ontario, that lived next to a nuclear reactor with 8 reactors, the end story, the last chapter, was pretty good. First couple chapters were pretty hard, but I guess we made it.
What I love hearing, and what I go after is, I talk about size because all you ever hear in today's world is you got to be big in order to get, and that's what I was told even back in, I'm 34, so, through the 90s, early 2000s, that's all I ever heard. But the more guys I interview, although that's probably the norm, it isn't the rule. And then all you ever hear is if, out west here, if you're not playing in the WHL,
yeah,
right? Like you're not going anywhere. And yet then you have Corey's story, how he got there. I had Dave Drzinski on at one point. He didn't have a long career in the NHL, but his story is just as mesmerizing, how he gets to the NHL. And you just go, it's probably, just let the kids have fun. And if they have fun, they're going to find ways to get better and continue to push it. And if they're going to get there, they're going to get there. And if they're not, they're not. Right? Certain kids are McDavid at age 3 or Tiger Woods at age 3, right? There's those, but those are far fewer than people think.
Yeah, and as salaries have escalated, there just seems to be this intoxicating way of our parents saying, what do we have to do to get this kid in the NHL, right? Do we need a face-off coach? We need a skills coach. We need a skating coach. I look at the Leafs today. I mean, they're practicing today behind me. And they have more coaches on the ice than they have players. It's like, how much can you coach a kid, right? The game is very simple. When we were kids and we would go to hockey tournaments, and, the one thing we love to do, we love to throw our parents in the pool. And it was always the same parent that knew he was going to get thrown in the pool. And we thought we were doing this and he didn't know. And then we find out later, like, he'd dressed for success. He knew he was going in. So it's like, okay, here we go. Love that. That was the best part of going away for some of the tournaments. And then the other thing was playing with the little mini sticks in the hall. So you'd roll up a sock or a ball of tape. And so if you break the game down, to me, it's pretty simple. I've got a little mini stick. You've got a mini stick. Who wants that ball more or that sock more? Me or you? And if I want it more, I win the game. There's that intangible side of the ledger that you can't define in the size, the weight. You just have to look at a Wayne Gretzky and say, why is this guy smarter than any player who ever played the game? You can't measure that. Certainly not the biggest, not the strongest, but man, he was the best. There wasn't anybody better than Wayne. And likewise, when you go down the list, Mark Messier, who, gosh, what a career he had. He had 1 goal his first year. His first shift in his first professional game, he had a breakaway and he hit the post. And he didn't score a goal for like 34 or 36 more games. He got the puck at center, dumped it in, went to change. The crowd went crazy. He didn't even see his first goal go in. What makes Mark? What makes him a great leader? What makes him the player that he is? The intangible side of the ledger for all of the great players or players that make it, whether it's Corey Cross or any other guy, it's that it's larger than life and you can't measure it. And so we fail to look at that when we look at players. Everything has to be analytically defined. How quick could you do the speed test, and how long is your broad jump, and could you bench press 150 pounds if that's the body weight that you have to bench press? None of that matters when I take a mini stick and a sock and we roll it up, and I want that more than you do. If I want it more than you, I win. And that typically is the way. But again, not a measurable analytic for most of the scouts or most of the parents or most of the coaches. It's just something that just evolves.
I bet if you put down a few of us in a little mini skate game, even at our age, that would be a bloody affair. I'm going, I wonder if I could get the sock away from Glenn Healy this morning. I'd certainly like to try. And I don't think it'd be as easy as I think.
Oh, you should watch it because they really don't have any elective surgeries for stitching or anything like that. You can't really go to the hospital with COVID-19, so it wouldn't be a good thing. We do have some glue here at the house. We're happy to use it for you, but honestly, it is that compete level, right? I think Pat Quinn said it to me best. He said, we're like a triangle, and you've got knowledge, which Gretzky had. Like, I mean, his knowledge of the game, incredible. He'd go to a spot and the puck would come to him, and you'd be like, how do you know that? Like, we're playing with Kreskin, right? I mean, amazing. And then there's skill, and God gives us that. And for some of the guys, that side of the ledger is enormous, right? Incredible skill. But the base of the triangle, as Pat Quinn used to say, was that intangible side of the ledger. And that's non-defined. And you could have all the skill in the world, but if you're not willing to compete, if you're not willing to go into a corner first, then you really don't have much of a chance. And hey, Ted Lindsay said it best to me when you talk about going into the corners and competing for a puck. He said to me, I like going in the corners, Glenn. And I thought, well, I'm a goalie. I mean, what does that mean? Why would you like going in the corners? He said, because I could tell right away when I go into the corner with another player, if I'm going in with a chicken shit or a man. And I could tell immediately. And so his advice to me was, in life, on and off the ice, go into the corners. Don't be a chicken shit. It was really good advice. Now, I did say those words at his funeral. Probably not wise to say that in a Catholic church, but I did. And then Yvon Cournoyer, who spoke after me, he got up and he went, good show, chum. Good show. I never went in the corners. I was a chicken shit when I went in the corners with Ted. So he beat me to the punch. Here we go. But I think that's a good rule to live by, right? It's that intangible side of the ledger, that compete, that's enormous. And if you can find a way to want something more than someone else, you're probably going to get it.
Man, I've probably said this to several guys who've come on here, but man, what it would have been like to have had Ted Lindsay still with us to sit across like this and pick his brain. That's what I love about this. I get to pick. Oh, you guys have just seen and experienced so much. Like as a fan, you read about certain things, but to have like your brain, you sit across and like just interact like this, man, this is. I won't soon forget this. When my kids get older, I got 3 kids, 4 and under. And when they get older, hopefully I'm still doing this, Glenn. But if I'm not, goddamn, it's fun to sit here and just hear you break it down that way. And certain guys can break it down way better. But even the life advice of right now and going through what we're going through, especially in the West, especially in Lloydminster, to not be afraid of the corners. That's something, Skip Craik, a guy from Lloyd, I've spoken very highly about him. I really enjoy Skip. He played for the Bruins back in the day and the Buffalo Sabres. And he said something that has stuck with me from the very beginning. And he was like guest 10 on this thing. He said, hockey mirrors society. And he was, because I'd asked him, are you frustrated with how the game's changed? Because, you guys played in what certain people would call the glory days, right? It was tough hockey, but everybody respected one another, and you go along with it. And he just put it very hockey mirrors society. And so back then, that's the way of the world, and the world has changed, and hockey's mirroring that. And the longer it goes, the more I go, man, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, the great thing too about Ted, and I'm sitting here with my alumni shirt on, right? So
Yeah.
it says honor the past. And that's our mission statement. That's what we do. And I look at Ted, and he gave up his career for other players. When you got traded to Chicago, when he got traded to Chicago, that was a death sentence. Like, the team stunk. It was not Detroit. It was not Toronto. It wasn't Montreal, who made the playoffs for 50 straight years. It was a way of punishing you. And he gave all that up to start a players association that fought for the rights of current players today that you may have on or may not have on your show. But he paved the roads that I drove on.
Yeah.
And I think I paved the roads that the current players get to drive on to make a very healthy wage to set themselves and their families up, which, fantastic. That's the way of the world, but honor the past is most important to me. The second thing Ted did, which was incredible, the pensions of the guys that played in the 60s and 70s are despicable. They're lousy. A pension of a Gordie Howe would have been 7,000 Canadian per year. So you're halfway to Disneyland, right? Because a Disney trip's about 14 grand. So if you want to spend it all on one trip, you got no money left. But with Pat Latley, Ted Lindsay set out to make the pensions, and it wasn't a pension, it was a gifting, supplemental gifting, better in 2005. And so for the past 16 years, because of Ted and Pat Latley's hard work, I was part of the meeting, but certainly wasn't the impetus for this happening. The NHL and the NHLPA have improved the we're not calling it a pension, the gifting of players, so that their ability in post-retirement is, you can afford medical, you can afford medicine versus food. It just makes life a little bit better tomorrow than today. And again, Ted, years after his retirement, he was there, and I was with him at the NHLPA office, and he walked in and talked to Bob Goodnow, and it was another legacy moment for Ted. And all of that is about honoring the past and making sure that the guys that didn't have the money that we had when we played, or the current guys have, that their life is a little bit better tomorrow than today. So he never stopped giving. He was always about helping somebody else. And I admire that about Ted and about a whole group of them that really stepped up when it mattered the most, because I know it really matters. And Ted was a guy who, he, again, started a players association with literally 6 owners. I think one of them owned 4 of the teams. So good luck with that one. They weren't exactly a friendly lot, so to speak, but he made a change for me and my family. And when I went to Ted's funeral, I stopped in front of my house and I looked at it and I went, Ted, thank you. Like, I wouldn't be living here if it wasn't for you, just because you made a difference for me. And I think every player should look at it that way. He was an incredible soul.
That's a cool story. I appreciate you sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated with a degree in history. I don't use it a whole lot, but when I get to do things like this, you certainly cue on the curiosity, so to speak. You mentioned your dad and mom actually immigrated from Scotland after the war. Did you ever talk to him about the war years?
No, he never spoke about it. Right? None of them did. Right? He was it was not part of the conversation. Right? And he was in a elite British fighting unit, the SAS, which was, kind of the Green Berets, and then and actually after the war ended, stayed on and was doing peacekeeping in Palestine. And then the King David Hotel was blown up.
Yeah.
And that was it. Britain pulled out of Palestine and said, we're out. And then that was the moment you decide, okay, how can I make a better life for my family that I'm going to have? And so that Canada was the place to be. Now, I would have recommended a place other than Pickering, which has 8 nuclear reactors. I would have, Lloydminster. I mean, come on. There's got to be something better than, the positive. If I kick the ball, at least one side of the fence, it wouldn't go over because the fence was 13 feet high. There's the reactors. Hey, hopefully there's not an implosion today. But no, again, there was never a talk of it. It was a part of their life that they probably didn't want, but they had to take part in and make a difference, and built a world for us that is, and in my mind, Canada is the best country in the world. And if you don't think it is, just take a trip down to the meth lab they have down south of the 48th and go, that's what they're doing down there. So I think, you know what, great pick, best country in the world, and the best people anywhere that you could ever find. So, but never a spoken word about the war. It just was a necessary evil. Got through it, got the right result from it, and my life has been pretty damn good since.
No, that's fair. I get to. I've been working on a project with the city of Lloyd where I get to interview people.
Corey, he's read all the war books.
Well, no, he's fallen asleep in the first 9 pages, right?
Got through chapter 1, which would be Poland. So if you want to know anything about Poland, he's gotten through that. The Russia thing later on, just the American thing. Did they take part or not? Give him 10 years and he'll get through it.
So you weren't drafted. You weren't taken in the NHL draft. How do you end up in LA?
Well, I was lucky in the sense that, we were playing in the CCHA final. We played a team, Bowling Green, which was the top team in the country. And they were stacked. They won the championship that year. They were the NCAA champions. And we played them in the kind of the first round of that championship. And they outshot us by no less than 50 shots. So it was a one-sided game. And Rogie Vachon at the time, he had Gary Galley and Dave Ellett as part of his group. And so he came to watch Gary Galley and see whether Gary was going to be part of the LA Kings. And for whatever reason, I had a game that I've never had since. And Rogie looked down at the ice and said, sign him. Okay, there you go.
So they just walked in and said, hey, Glenn, you want to come play for the LA Kings?
LA Kings. So I
Were you absolutely floored?
Well, in some ways, just never knew where it was going to take you. I looked at university. I had 2 degrees. I had one in marketing and one in finance, and thought, if you learn, you earn. So I have a job. So it was like, no pressure. If I don't make it, I don't make it. I mean, lots don't. We all pretend that we're going to make it. And like you, I was, if I'd only been 4 inches taller, I would have made it. I've heard that from you. Quite frankly, you're full of shit. Not a chance. Take that piano off your back, you would have a chance too, right? Anyways, and there's going in the corners. If you were a chicken shit, you would have went in the corners. But I don't want to bring that up either. But no. So it was just a matter of
fucking Tuesday morning getting harassed by Glenn Healy. What more can a guy ask for?
Yeah, living the dream. Anyways, the bottom line was just a matter of going as far as you could see, and I could see a little further. I got to camp. I still remember signing my contract, and it was at the hotel in Toronto at the airport. And Pat Quinn and Rogie Vachon and all their scouting staff was there for me to sign my contract. I walked in and they're all smoking cigars. You can't even see in the room. It's just like, and I'm thinking to myself, this is the NHL? Like, what about that pure, pristine, too much caffeine's bad for you, or no alcohol, and smoke and cigars and scotch, and signed my contract. And then the journey began. We had an older team. We were rebuilding, older goalies. And so the door was open for a young kid to have a chance to make a mark. And when the opportunity came, I, again, took advantage of it, and it worked out pretty good. It led to a career of 16 years, which, I was done after 12. I just didn't want to send a memo to the NHL because I was happy with the paychecks. But it was a long career that started with one game against Bowling Green that turned out to be a pretty damn good game. And then from there, it was okay. Let's see where this goes.
I gotta throw another Lloydminster name out to you. Then it would have been your first year in LA. Does John Paul Kelly ring a bell?
Yes, yeah. JP would sit, and I don't think he would take his helmet off until he had 6 beers after the game. So he would sit on a chair in the locker room, and trust me, back then we didn't have the arenas and locker rooms and facilities we had today. It was an incredible thing where you had like a bucket of beer in the locker room, another bucket of beer by the weight room, because who doesn't want to work out with a beer? Another bucket of beer by the shower, and then another one by where you put your clothes on. And then if you anywhere near JP, there was another bucket of beer. And so by the time you made your way up to the Forum Club, which is where all the celebrities would hang out, if you weren't bombed, you were almost next to it, because it was like, yeah, well, ride the bike. Here we go. Yeah, nothing like riding the bike with a cold one. But that was the way it was. And then, boy, did it come to a screeching halt. Now it's coconut water and a whole bunch of healthy things. And I don't know if there's less injuries today than we had. I know we had a lot more fun, but that being said, yep, JP, and then the helmet would come off and it'd be like, okay, he's finished his couple libations and it's time to get at it in the next round, which would have been by the shower and then by the weight room and then by the dressing room and then by where you put your clothes on. So it was a long journey to finish a game.
What playing in LA? You mentioned going upstairs to where the slebs were. Even before Gretzky got there, then there was slebs kicking around that were hanging around with the team and.
Yeah, not really. Marginally, when Wayne got there, and it was a shock that he got there. I mean, you're looking at a team that had. I mean, we had Tiger Williams, we had Larry Playfair, we had Jay Wells, we had Dean Kennedy. There wasn't a tougher team in the league. J.P. Kelly, take us on. Good luck to you. Not a chance. You send over 4, we could send over 8. No problem. And then Wayne gets to the team, and you think about it, Wayne at the time was the best player in the planet. He had won 4 cups in 5 years. And, I can recall meeting Bob McKenzie in Pickering outside of there was one meat store you could buy some good steaks, and looking back on it now, they weren't even really good. But, and he said, yeah, you're going to go to the press conference. And I was like, for what? Wayne Gretzky's coming to LA. No, he's not. Wayne Gretzky? Yeah, he's coming to LA. Okay, all right, well, good one. And Bob's usually not wrong. And sure enough, 4 days later, press conference, and there's Wayne Gretzky putting on an LA King sweater. And that changed everything for us. We became the team that you didn't want to watch, the team of non-record to the team of you want to record. And very first time we had Meet the Kings, we used to do it in, just a random restaurant in Sepulveda or Culver City, wherever it may be, just a normal place. And then it became Meet the Kings in Beverly Hills. And we had Ronald Reagan show up. We had John Candy, clearly. We had Paul Anka and Neil Diamond singing it. It was just the who's who of everybody. And I recall, driving, I had a black Ford Escort with no air conditioning in LA. That was my car of choice. And I had Paul Gay and Paul Fenton and Lyle Fair, all of us driving to Meet the Kings. And you pull up and they had all the paparazzi, lined up to take pictures of the celebs. And we got out of our black Ford Escort and you could hear the shutter of the cameras, the and they quickly stopped. And I could hear one of the reporters going, who the fuck are they? Well, we're the players. I don't know. The end of the day, that was the way it was in LA. And we went from having maybe 4 games televised, which was great for our players because you could commit any atrocity in the league and there would be no videotape of it, so no suspension, to having every game televised. You couldn't get a ticket, you couldn't get a seat, and one player changed our team. We went from a mediocre, bottom-feeding team with no chance of any success to one of the best teams in the league with one player and one trade.
What's Gretzky like then? We've talked a little bit about him being the best, and the reason I ask it like that is you got to see, but by the time I'm old enough to remember Gretzky, he's not a bad hockey player, but he's slowing down. You got to see Gretzky like peak form Gretzky.
So when they introduced the team the very first night, they went out numerical, right? Number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way down. So but I was number 35. So, I was one of the last guys kind of get to the blue line. And then they announced all of our kind of records and awards and accomplishments. And so for me, it was just, and number 35, Glenn Healy. There really wasn't much behind that. There was no haggis and meat behind that. Just number 35, get to the blue line, stop, and let's get on with the next guy. And Wayne was about to follow. And they went through his records. And as they announced each record, most goals, most assists, most points, most, the crowd got louder and louder and louder. And it was, there 3 times when I heard a crowd this loud. One was when they announced Wayne. Second was when he went back to Edmonton for the first time. And the third, when we won the cup with the New York Rangers, the first time we stepped on the ice for Game 7. Those are the 3 crowd responses that I will always remember. But they announced Wayne and the records one after another. And it seemed like a 3.5 minute soliloquy, right? Just what he had accomplished. And then he came on the ice, and I think he was a little bit nervous, right? First time in a different sweater. And then he went out on his first shift, on his first shot, and scored a goal. And then when we beat Edmonton that year in the first round of the playoffs, in the Game 7, we went to 7. His first shift and his first shot, he scored a goal. And then the empty net, you could guess who got it. To solidify bye-bye Edmonton, Wayne Gretzky. Like, you don't make this up. Like, how do the greats write this? They just do it. They just do. And for him, there was like nobody could contain him. When we played against him, and he would get behind the net in his office, right? Remember the office?
Oh, yes.
And it was, okay, here's what we'll do. You ready? Don't tell anybody. We'll send one guy behind the net to get him. 4 points. All right. Didn't work. We'll send 2 guys behind the net to get him. Okay? 4 points. Okay. You got a new game plan. Nobody goes. Just stay where you are. Okay? 5 points. Like, unstoppable, unthinkable. There was no chance that anybody was going to stop him from doing what he was out to accomplish. I read a stat the other day that if he played from the day he retired for another 16 years, so 16 more years, which would be a hell of a long career, and he never got a point in any of those 16 years, like not 1 point in his last. So he plays 16, no points in the next 16. He still would have had a point a game as a player. There isn't a player in our game today who gets a point a game. So the numbers are irrefutable, simply the best. And a normal guy in every way, like no errors, just your typical Canadian kid from Ontario, cares about his family, cares about his kids, cares about his father, his brother, and cared about everybody that played on the team. It was a great experience to have a chance to watch it firsthand.
So what do you say to all the people that say if Ovechkin or Crosby or whoever were playing back in that era, they would trounce Gretzky?
Yeah. Put the bottle down because clearly you've had too many. Or in this country, maybe it's a gummy. I don't know. Put the gummies down. No. Again, I played against him. I played with him. I played with him at the start. I played with him at the end. And unfortunately, in our life, something comes along that will never come along again. And if it's in music, it's the Beatles. Is every one of their songs a hit? Rolling Stones, and Gretz, when he put skates on, simply magic. There was nobody like him. And yeah, you can make that argument. Go ahead. Go to Lloydminster, sit in the bar, get yourself a double, and try to make sense of the fact that, yes, you know what? Wade Redden would have contained him. Ask Wade. No chance.
Well,
He's
you
just
know, when
that.
I said I got to see him closer to the end of his career and he'd slowed down a bit, you kind of gave me a look of like, I don't know about that. You got to see him at the beginning, at the end. You played with him. What did you think towards the end?
Well, hey, Father Time does take care of us all. It does. The problem we have as players is when we are 18 and we start playing, or 20, 21, we prepare for games the same way. I put my left skate on first all the time, then my right, my left pad, and then my right pad. And we never really see ourselves for what we really are. And we all think of ourselves at 34, 35, 36 is the same as we were at 18. We're not. I mean, playing all those games, all the playoff games, winning the cups, Canada Cups, World Championships, Olympics. It just takes a wear and tear on you that, we're time capsules. That's just the way it goes. But even at the end, when Wayne was older, even at the end when I was older, we were okay to watch. Wayne was better than okay. He still was. I would, if you're going to ask me for $100 for a ticket, $100, and you're to say, you want to watch McDavid or you want to watch Wayne? Today, you ask me games this afternoon at 3:00. I don't know where your $100 would go. I know where mine would go. I'll put my Gretzky $100 up against your McDavid, and I love Connor, and he is one of the best players in the world, top two. You could argue whether it's Sid or him, it's Ferrari or Lamborghini, but I would still take my $100 and watch Wayne one more time. I would watch him one more time in an alumni game, and I think those suck. And I'm running the alumni, so there's my $100. That's where I'm going to spend it.
I tell you what, I'm going to go off the board then. If we're going to spend $100, I'm a defenseman, and I didn't get to ever watch Bobby Orr play, and I've heard, I've had Cheevers is another goalie I've had on, and him talk about watching Bobby firsthand, and I just had Don on yesterday, and talking about coaching Orr and all the stories of Bobby Orr.
Oh, he coached him, did he?
What?
He coached him. Oh, that's like coaching Santa. No. Christmas Eve, he gets in the sleigh and off he goes. You don't coach Bobby Orr. Bobby just goes on when he wants and creates and fills a canvas. You and I, as your defenseman, goalie, okay, we painted the barn. He painted a Picasso. You didn't coach Bobby Orr. Love grapes, but hey, you're not coaching Bobby Orr. Sorry to interrupt.
No, but you make my point very clear. My $100 would go to watch that guy when he's, winning his Norrises, like his, what was it, 8 Norrises, like
well, only in a row, but that's
that's it. Not a big deal, right? Like my favorite memory as a kid growing up is watching a clip of him on Rock'em Sock'em that has him embarrassing the Flames on a penalty kill. And my brain, even at a young age, understood on a penalty kill, why won't they chase him? Oh, because if they do, he's down the other end. He tucks it home and puts his head down, right? Like, that's where my $100 would go. And that's no knock on the Great One or McDavid. I mean, McDavid, can watch McDavid right now in his heyday, and it's a lot of fun. Like, the guy is ridiculously talented.
And I think I said it. It's a Lamborghini or a Ferrari.
Right.
Which one you want to drive, right? It's not the black Ford Escort that I drove in LA with no air conditioning. This is rarefied air for these guys. And you're right. When you look at Bobby's records and you look at what he accomplished and how he revolutionized the game, how he made it for a Paul Coffey to become, it was unheard of that a defenseman would jump in the rush. My gosh, you can't do that because we were overcoached. Stay back, just wait for them to come back to you. Bobby thought way better to have the puck than go get it, right? So when I get it, I ain't giving it up. I'm just going to play around and do whatever I want. But you look at him, you look at a Nick Lidstrom, you look at those kind of players. They only come along every once in a while, and when they do, it's worth the price of admission. And for Wayne or Mario or Mark, very few guys that when they came into the league did they make that impression on all of us, coast to coast to coast. But they did, and I mean, hey, if I manage to make $100 more today, I'll sit beside you when you're watching Bobby.
That's fair. You talk about some. Well, we just rattled off some great defensemen. Personal favorite, even though he didn't played for my team, was Scott Niedermayer. I always thought that guy, yeah, he was so fast in and out and in and out, that amazing. But the year you guys win the Stanley Cup in New York, well, maybe this gets talked about, and I just my ears are closed but when I looked into it, Sergei Zubov led your team in scoring that year.
Mm-hmm. And you think about it, the very start of the year, when you play in New York, we live north of the city, so to get into the city, you got to cross like 3 time zones, 18 different traffic zones. It was hard to get into the city. And so we had an exhibition game, and Zuby decided, you know what? I don't go to the game tonight. I'm going to stay home and watch it on TV. And Mike Keenan got whiff of that and was not very happy. And so when Zuby came into the rink the next morning, his equipment wasn't hung up in a stall. It was packed in a bag, and he was on his way to Binghamton. So he spent the first part of that year in the minors. And then we realized that, you know what, Mike, not everything you do about crippling human spirit and taking the will of people away is right. And maybe Zubov should be back on the team. And so he called him back up. And so on that year, spending the start of the year in the minors, Zubov came up, and really the crazy thing is we only played 4 defense. You had Kevin Lowe with Zubov, and you had Jeff
Brian,
Luca, and Brian Leach. Now those are our 4. And then when we got up to a big lead, which we did through most of that year, and we were done at the end of 2 periods, then all of a sudden we could release the army of defensemen 5 and 6. Your Doug Lidsters, your Jay Wells. Okay, now it's your turn to play. And so we played that whole year with 4D. And when it came to a power play, it was Leach and Zubov. They played the entire power play, a left shot and a right shot, one on that board and the other one on that board. And it was like, rover, come on over. And the further you went away from the house, the better chance we had those crossing passes to give it to the Adam Graves and the Mark Messiers and whoever played on that particular power play with him. So incredible skill. He's in the Hall of Fame. So when you get put into the Hall of Fame, not the Lloydminster one, because that one's hard to get into, but when you get in the Hall of Fame,
it certainly is.
Yeah, like for Zuby to do what he did. And again, that's a great trivia question, because everyone would have expected, Adam Graves, who set a record that year, most goals ever by a Ranger, ever. And there were some great players who played with the Rangers, great players. He had the most goals ever. Nope, didn't lead the team in scoring. Best leader ever. Nope, didn't lead the team in scoring. And it was a guy you would never pick, but skilled, intelligent, and full of courage. Everyone talks about Russian players aren't as tough. Bullshit. We had 5 of them, and they were all as tough as nails.
Well, we can't talk about the Rangers. I'm sure you get asked about this all the time, but the guarantee, like Mark Messier saying we're going to win. Did everybody just I know he's like one of the all-time or maybe the all-time leaders, I don't know, in a locker room, but when he says that, I assume guys just went, yeah, all right, let's roll with this. But now guys try and do it it doesn't matter if it's hockey or other sports, and it just kind of feels like, I don't know. But when Mark said it, was it just like, here we go?
Well, there is no leader in any sport, football, baseball, basketball, like Mark. He is it when it comes to leadership. And I would challenge anybody in any sport to name me somebody else. He, clearly was the captain of our ship. And when it came to that particular game, I do recall getting on the bus. And, that was back in the day when you actually bought a paper. Weren't just sitting on your phone. None of us had phones. So we weren't online. We weren't digitally checking this out. It was like the physical form of a paper. And the headline was, "We will win." And, a part of it was, probably Mark going, "Oh my gosh, well, I told the reporter that I believe in our team and we are going to win." What did you expect him to say?
Yeah.
No, we have already booked our vacation. So get all your questions in this morning because I won't talk to the media tonight because I'll be done and I'll be on a jet and I'll be gone to the Dominican, wherever. No, of course he believed in his team and he believed in us and he believed we would win. And I did too. I mean, I wasn't even playing and I believed we were going to win because I thought we were so damn good from day one of training camp all the way through to that game that was an elimination game. Now, did I start to regret it and think about that decision with a minute and 30 left to go in the second period and we were down 2-0 to the New Jersey Devils who played the 0-5, which was like you never forecheck past the blue line. You just waited at the red line and said, Rover, Rover, we call the Rangers over. It was the most boring hockey going until Kovalev scored. I didn't believe it. And then he scored and it was okay. And then for Mark to go out in the third period, down 2-1, and score 3 goals by himself and win it. Again, these are the storybook endings that only the greats can write. And you know, again, the guy who does the story is not the guy who writes the headline. 2 separate parts of the media. So the guy who wrote the headline, boy, was he going to sell papers with "We will win," right? 3 simple words, but we're
Look at us here. We're how many years later are we? And you still talk about it.
We're still talking about it. So I believe we're going to win. And if Mark says we're going to win, we're just honestly pull up the truck and we're getting on. Pull up the bus and we're getting on. And so probably a little bit more pressure that he wanted to put on himself. But you score 3 in the third. He delivered. He delivered it all. And his first goal in that third period, I think he put the puck, he put Bernie Nichols, he put everything in the net. So it was like, is there anyone else want to get on the back of my hockey stick? Because I'll throw you in the net with the puck and Bernie Nichols and whoever else wants to go in. But yeah, and then to score an empty netter from 190 feet. Okay, there's sharp shooting at its best. So Mark was the best leader and one of the best teammates I ever played with.
Well, I could hold you on here for the next probably 5 hours and do this because I've certainly enjoyed it. I want to move us into the final 5. And then what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to harass you again in the new year to get you on for a part 2 because this has been highly, highly entertaining for me. I'm sure the people are going to enjoy the hell out of it. But 5 quick questions. Crude Master Final 5. Shout out to Heath and Tracy McDonald. Huge supporters of the podcast since the very beginning. The first one is always, if you could sit down for a beverage or a conversation like this to pick anyone's brain, who would you take, Glenn?
Anybody at any time.
Correct.
I'll take Jesus. Maybe some pretty good stories to get from him.
You realize in 100 and you're going to be episode 140, and that is the second time Jesus has come up. Reuben Mays was the other guy.
He's got a pretty interesting story. I don't know if you've heard about it. I don't know. He might have more stories than me. Just saying. But I'll pick his brain. And as we approach Christmas,
what better time?
Better guy to get on my podcast. Oh, I don't have one. Maybe he can work that out for me. I don't know. That'd be if that's my first guest. Might be well anticipated and much attended. Yeah.
Commissioner for a day. If you could change a rule or implement a rule, what would you do?
As a goalie, as a player, as a coach, I like the game. I don't know if I would change anything. To me, we're in a good space. Maybe ban Pierre McGuire from between the benches. If I could make a rule, would that be okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. I don't know how many fans would be like, yeah, we're going to miss that.
That would be it. I love the game, but if we just, even put the cone of silence down just for a moment and then watch it and then not know that you're from Lloydminster and I'm from Pickering and you think anyone in the States cares where people are from in Canada? I mean, they think we're covered in snow all year long. They didn't have a clue about us. So there would be my rule. There we go. Commissioner for the day.
Bagpipes. For people who don't realize, you play the bagpipes.
Yeah.
Where has been, I don't know, most memorable? We'll go with memorable place you've played the bagpipes for the listeners.
Well, I can't name one, so can I name a couple?
Certainly.
Okay. On stage with Paul McCartney, playing Mulligan Tire. pretty cool. At the Air Canada Center, I didn't really get to play much. Curtis Joseph played all the games. So I actually got to play at the Air Canada Center, but it was with Paul McCartney. So that was pretty cool. I would say Carnegie Hall, the first year after 9/11, we put on a concert. And for all of the families and the victims of that tragedy, walking on the stage of Carnegie Hall in a full building, the acoustics, again, it's where you leave your body and it's like, wow, is this really happening? It's almost like that scene from the Matrix where, it's like, just kind of makes its way across. And then I would say Vimy Ridge, probably when we did the 90th recommemoration, and just knowing that that was the birthplace of a nation for our country to do something that no other country could do, which is take the ridge and turn the fate of World War I, and looking at all the names on the gravestones. And I mean, trust me, the kids were 17 and 16 and 15, and they made it so that we could have that freedom to finish the piping at Vimy and go and have a beer in the center square. And then probably the last where Corey Cross was with me, the victory parade for Vimy went through this town called Arras, and small little town. And again, like most European towns, they have a city square, and the Queen was there, the Prime Minister was there, the President was there, and they stopped us before we went in. And we had all the Canadian RCMP horses with the Canadian flag kind of shaved on their rear ends, their rumps. And they waited and they said, Mr. Healy, just wait for a second. And we waited for the other bands to leave the center square. And it was absolutely chock-a-block full. And the announcement was, ladies and gentlemen, Canada. And the place went crazy. That moment, I'll never forget. And never be more proud of the people that fought and made it for our great nation. But when they told me there was going to be the number of people there, I was in disbelief. And as we came down the street, and there was 6 deep and 10 deep and 20 deep and 30 deep. But when we went into that center square with the announcement of Canada, that was something special. So I won't forget that.
We should have started with bagpipes. Holy frig. Well, I know where round two's starting. Round two of this thing is going to start with your bagpiping career. Wowzer.
One quick story too. When we were there, you couldn't buy a drink, right? So I couldn't drink a drink. I had no hands, right? It was like, hey. So can someone give me a straw? Give me a straw, please. And there was a lady in one of the windows, older lady, really old, and she was calling us up. And okay, me. Oh, so up we go. And she had a spread set up with champagne and cheese and all of the accompaniments. And she was a 5-year-old girl in that window when the actual victory parade went through. And she's given me like a clock and a pocket watch. I'm like, I never fought. I'm just a good bagpiper. That's all I am. But to be that little girl in that window and to still be living there and to watch the 90th recommemoration, pretty special. So I've had some special moments. What started off as drudgery when my parents made me play it when I was a kid, to the places I've got to around the world, bagpipes they're pretty cool. So anyone who says don't play them, they sound lousy and they only know one song, you're full of shit. Just letting you know.
That's pretty cool. We are definitely starting there the next time around. Wow. That's bagpipes of all things. Rangers or Leafs? You've played both Original Six. I know you won the Cup with the Rangers, so maybe it's a loaded question. But both Original Six places, both meccas of their given countries. The Leafs is the center of the hockey world. What was the market? Which one?
I would pick the team that has a Stanley Cup picture in color. I'm going to go with the Rangers.
With the Rangers. Okay.
I desperately wanted to come to Toronto to do what we did in New York, which was erase 54 years of misery. And in New York, we had 3 generations of Ranger fan that never saw a championship. Grandfather, father, son. And when we erased that, to this day, almost 28 years later, still don't buy a drink there. It's still a magical place to be. They still remember. And I wanted to do that in Toronto. And we were close, but we fell short. It is a hard trophy to win. It's the hardest 35 pounds you'll ever lift over your head. And we didn't get it done in Toronto, got it done in New York. So for those guys, we'll walk together forever based on what we did.
Your final one. If you could pick a goalie to either have relieve you or relieve them, you get to work in tandem for a year, who would you take?
I would take Johnny Bauer. I'm going to take Johnny for a couple of reasons. I think he would be one of my best teammates. And, the third goalie would be Curtis Joseph or Mike Richter. Maybe we put both of them in the minors and we call them up periodically. But just incredible teammates. And Johnny was underrated. He didn't get to play with the teams that Jacques Plante played with. He didn't get to play with the best of the best, where every defenseman went to the Hall of Fame. Pretty much every forward went to the Hall of Fame. The whole team went to the Hall of Fame. Johnny didn't have that, and when he won the cup the last time, and I watched it as a 5-year-old, he was playing with a bunch of 40-year-old has-beens and delivered. And to me, he's your ultimate teammate, caring, giving soul, and I'd have him on my team any day.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on, Glenn. This has been a lot of fun.
I'm welcome to come on anytime, as you have told me. The honorarium, the $40,000 you paid me for the show, could you please send the amount? I'm happy to help. Again, you keep doing what you're doing. I think, in this time of COVID, where we feel this real sense of isolation and we feel this real sense of a lack of structure in our day, right? I mean, how many days can you wear sweatpants in a row and then look at your closet and go, those are suits. I used to wear those. Remember those days? We need this, and you're delivering. And so keep it up, please. You're doing a great job.
Thanks, Glenn. Hey, folks, thanks again for joining us today. If you just stumbled on the show and like what you hear, please click subscribe. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, a new guest will be sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you find your podcast fix. Until next time.